Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule. This is the deep dive of Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 6, with Cirroc Lofton, of course.
Hello, hello.
I'm drinking a delicious beverage. I didn't catch what that was, but it looked really good.
No, just that old-fashioned water.
Oh, that's good. Oh, well, it is nothing other than a replica of Captain Janeway's coffee mug.
Oh, yeah.
With magic elixir
Courtesy of the Voyager documentary.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And my friends over there.
And me. No, I'm just kidding.
And
we're friends
Ryan.
Still, right? I think. Real quick, here are the trivioids of the week, or maybe the month, since it's a deep dive. Dr. Bashir mistook a preganglionic fiber for a postganglionic nerve during the orals, or he would have been valedictorian. You know, that was going to be in the opening trivioids, and at the last second I chickened out and it said, no, quark makes great couscous. Let's just
go easy for the easy one.
Also, there are three passengers aboard the shuttlecraft Ganges. Vash had been in the Gamma Quadrant for over 2 years. Vash's gemstones molecular density and refraction index is much higher than a Promethean quartz. Professor Wu suspended Vash's membership from the Institute's Archaeological Council. Captain Picard likes a good challenge. Q is called the god of lies on Brax, but they mean it in an affectionate way. Quarks makes a delicious couscous. Thanks for saving me, Quarks. Kolos buys the first piece of the Gamma Quadrant for 36 bars of gold pressed latinum. People have uncovered the ruins of a Roquet provincial capital on Tartarus 5. Thank God I saved those to later. Those are too hard to say.
I like Tartarus sauce on my fillet of fish.
Ah, excellent. Dentists hate Tartarus, though. So, yeah, this episode.
So right off top, I'm going to give you Dr. Bashir's macking game in the opening scene was about a 3 out of 10.
But Chief O'Brien was our window. We were watching him. We're like, yep, this guy gets it. He's just like looking at him like, oh God, what's going on?
Yeah, I love those are some of the best facials, and O'Brien's facials were some of the best. And speaking of that, Ryan, I wanted to ask you what you thought about, or how you feel about being sucked in the wormhole. DS9.
Well, it they were afraid of it at first, but as they saw, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Some ships rather enjoy it, and so I'm sure they would have been fine. The problem is that that station is just way too big for that wormhole, and so it's just they're just going to go on with those runabouts and move on with their lives.
It'll blow. It'll blow into 1,000 pieces. Quick question. This is the first episode where they showed, which I thought was interesting as a concept, because we always get different things on the show. This one is the first time I saw a safe deposit or a bank type of scenario on the station.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting because she was checking in those artifacts and they were doing an item inventory log, and it looked like a safe deposit vault on the station, which I thought, wow, that's clever, and I don't remember seeing that before.
I agree, and I hadn't seen. I had forgotten about that, and I made a few notes on it because I was like, oh, that's really interesting that these are super valuable. And she'd rather put them in that safety deposit box rather than in her own quarters. So they're so valuable that she's worried that something might happen in her quarters. And I believe the character's name was the assayer who checks it.
Okay.
I've never heard that term, but I'm assuming that's just somebody that, does that kind of stuff. But I found it really interesting too, just because it was one of those slice of Federation life that we hadn't seen, that kind of tells us what life is like in the future, or what life is like on a station where, shady dealings happen. So you do have to have contingency plans and, things that are kind of like investments into protecting your assets or something. I liked it. I thought it was a cool, interesting scene because it was, as far as I know, the only time we've ever seen something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was a great thing because, maybe on a spaceship, like, Enterprise or something, it wouldn't have it because everybody's going to be personnel. But something like a space station where you have so many people coming in and out, you would probably have a need for a safe deposit box like that for valuable items. So I just thought it was a clever touch, something we hadn't seen before. I really liked Quark in this episode. I thought his greed and his facial expressions were great. I love when he talked about his customers, how he loved them because they were wealthy and not too bright. that was that was great, and I really enjoyed Odo's scene when he talks about the just the useless cycle of junk collecting, and just like it kind of it rings true to some degree where we just constantly just hoarding stuff and until the point where
I think we're all, when we're watching this, we're all thinking like, I totally agree with you, Odo, and I wish I could be more like you because we are like,
I wish I could,
especially because what I was thinking actually when he was talking about that was how freeing it must be for him when somebody gets him a gift. He just goes, nah, I don't need it. I don't want it. It's a little bit rude, but he never has to deal with it. Whereas the rest of us, we're so petrified of hurting anybody's feelings with good reason that if somebody gives you something you don't necessarily want, you don't go, nah, I don't want it. Fuck off. We just go, a cat can opener that smells like kibble. Thank you. I don't have a cat, but this is great. Yeah, no. This is, I'll definitely sure to find a
when I get a cat, I'll use it.
Yeah. We're all so scared. Whereas Odo's got it good. He's like, no, I don't want it. No thanks. No junk. I don't want stuff.
Yeah, no, I helped a buddy of mine move, and I showed up, and he's like, yeah, can you help me move? I show up, and nothing's in boxes.
Oh, no.
Everything's just like, and I was like, what do you mean help you pack? Because I'm not helping you pack. I'll help you move, won't help you pack.
He wanted you to do his dishes for him, vacuum his floor.
Yeah. Not doing that. I'll help.
I'll lift boxes.
I'll lift boxes. But I'm not putting stuff in boxes and wrapping stuff up with newspaper. But yeah, it's a freeing thing that Odo has this mentality where he's able to kind of be not attached to any kind of material possession. I thought that's just ideally is a great mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I was just going to say, I also thought that it was really cool that we see Vash. I always want to call her Vash because that's what Picard calls her, but it's Vash. We see Q, and they're together in the same episode and never seen again. And, as Robert was saying, it does kind of make it a Vash episode. And if it's a Vash episode, it would have made me want to see her more times than just this one. Like, it would have been nice, kind of like what happened with Majel Roddenberry and the Lwaxana Troi character. She was in, I think, 2 episodes, maybe 3. And they introduced her as a potential recurring character, and it just didn't work out that way for whatever reason. I feel like it would have been cool if Vash was a recurring character as well. Because having her with Q just kind of muddies it up a little bit to where we don't really get to focus on one and not the other. I think it was probably a good idea for the people at the top to say, no Q, you guys don't get Q, because I think one time was good with Q, and Q's thing is he likes ships that are going places, so he can bring them to weird places and new adventures and that. I don't think he fits as well bothering a space station. I think that without him and without the Borg, like Robert was saying, it opens the door for the writers to create the Dominion instead. Okay, we can't use the Borg. We can't use Q. Fine, let's create the Dominion. And man, thank God they did, right?
Yeah, thank God they did, because obviously the Dominion storyline is something that is fantastic and so good, and in fact that they had to reuse it in the Picard, in the new seasons of Picard. So it is a good story, good storyline. I guess the thing that I had with this episode was the fact that Q was a little bit outside of his normal character in this. Usually, when he shows up, he's the focal point, and it felt like he was the third wheel almost in this episode. I felt like this could have been an episode like an Indiana Jones. She's she's basically playing like a Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones type of character, intergalactic, archaeologist, which I like that storyline. And I also saw that the partnership with Quark and her could have been something that could have been developed on, and she could have been an ally for Quark in the future. And I also
are going to love her in Next Generation, because you are going to get some of that in the Next Generation.
Yeah. I also feel like Q was introduced too early in the episode. I felt like they could have just had more of her story, more mystery behind her. They had the orb or whatever it was, that Promethean quartz object. That could have been more the focal point of the mystery, and less about her running away from him. Because you can't really run away. Can you really run away from Q? Like,
no.
That's what I'm saying. You can't. So
she sure wanted
when
to,
he leaves,
but yeah.
When he leaves, she's like, "Oh, I'll go on that thing," like as if whispering when he's gone is going to change the fact that he can hunt her down anywhere in the world.
And he's the kind of jerk that he would deliberately show up when you're pooping, like just every single time, and you're just like, why can't you just wait? And he's, of course, gonna be like, well, because this is much funnier to me, is to bother you when you're doing this. You at least turn away, bro. Anyway, let's take a quick break and wipe that from the record. Strike that from the record. We'll be right back on the 7th rule.